Well, hello and welcome to the Smells Like Money podcast. Join me, Suzanne Chin Taylor, the Doo-Doo Diva, as I interview guests who are making an impact on how we manage and operate systems for conveying and treating wastewater. As a veteran of the wastewater, trenchless, and civil infrastructure industry, each week I'll be bringing you industry know-how from industry pros who know how. Join me each week as I speak with representatives of organizations that are utilizing disruptive or new technologies and methods, and executives who are excited to share how to be successful and sustainable in our vital industry. So whether you want to learn about the latest trends in technology, in treatment or trenchless, gain tips on training and retaining great talent, or simply how to be more efficient, productive, or profitable, this podcast is for you. Ready? Let's dive right in. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Doo-Doo Divas Smells Like Money podcast. We are visiting today with James Moss, a wastewater specialty recruiter with Pivot Search. Now, James is based out of the UK, which I'm sure you're going to pick up on immediately when you start to hear him speak with his lovely, lovely accent. But he works primarily for recruiting in the US, but also in the UK and some in Europe. And we're going to be talking about something that, it's near and dear to my heart, something we all need to be worried about in this industry, is bringing new blood and recruiting candidates and recruiting talent into this wonderful industry that we call home. And so welcome to the show, James.
Very much. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Well, we connected on LinkedIn. It's a wonderful thing. And began this dialogue, for recruiting. And I never thought about, a headhunting firm being used in the wastewater industry, but nothing could be further from the truth. And I guess is that we are beginning to reach what I would call scary epidemic shortages in the labor pool for the wastewater market, and that it's not just in the US. This is becoming a global problem that we opened a dialogue about what do we need to do as cities, public and private sector, to encourage the younger generation of coming into the industry. So you shared some interesting insights on this, and that's why I really wanted to have you on the show, is that you brought up the topic that this is now a candidate-driven market and not so much an employer-driven market. And what do you actually mean by that? What do we need to understand about this shift in the marketplace when it comes to recruitment?
Yeah. Well, I guess first of all, in terms of the attracting the new talent, young blood into the sector, I think that's something that I've been looking at for quite a while now. I think sort of the last couple of years, I'd say I've seen a lot of articles about it. Heard from a lot of different figures around the industry that this is really becoming a bit of a problem right now. I guess the aging workforce in the wastewater sector. Just because, I mean, it's not necessarily a problem because a lot of these, wastewater utility workers will retire. That's not necessarily a problem itself because people will retire in any industry. It's going to be, very, very prevalent in any industry. But the real problem is that we're lacking I guess, replacing this retiring workforce, replacing this this workforce which will be retiring. I think there's different sort of figures on it on sort of the exact amount, but anywhere from sort of 20 to 30%, maybe even a bit higher sometimes. 20 to 40% of the current workforce looks like in the next 10 years will be retiring. So it's I guess we need to get a move on in terms of hiring those younger people to really join the industry, get them trained up, get them invested in, and get them experience in the sector really. So that's something that I've been looking at quite a while. In terms of what we can do to attract that young talent, there's a few different things. I guess it's quite easy to just shout on government or local agencies to invest more, fund more, etc. But I think what different companies can do, for example, wastewater utilities, what they can do. Definitely something I've looked at a lot in the UK, which I think would be a really, really good thing to do, is introduce a lot more apprenticeships. So before, college or university education, getting people interested in the sector, getting people enthusiastic about the sector before college, before university, whether that be an apprenticeship or something similar. I know that in the UK and in Europe, apprenticeships are a lot more common than in the US. Um, but that's something we can definitely do over here, and probably something maybe somewhat similar in the US. Getting people interested in that before, and it's an alternative. It's an alternative career route. It's an alternative route other than just college or university education. Getting people interested in it earlier than that, to really get them into these companies, and that's something else that I touched on as well. Getting people, I guess maybe even from schooling, getting people interested. Then a lot of these companies will maybe show up at things like college fairs and start to look at the younger workforce from college. But getting people interested even earlier than that, get it going to and this is something that I think in like local and rural areas would be even more important as well, because obviously wastewater utilities around these areas probably even more in need of um, um, people with the right sort of skills. So getting people interested in it as early as possible, I think, is one of the most important things that we can do, to be honest.
Well, when you're talking about the younger crowd, yes, get them young, but I think we need to understand more. What are they, when you were talking about, when we talked about offline, this is a candidate driven market. What
Mhm.
are young people looking for? What is it that's important? I think we need to understand. It's great, to do that outreach, but unless we're delivering the thing that is enticing to them or of interest to them, of, oh, I should take a look at that. What is it that is important to them? What are they looking for in a potential career path? What are they looking for? Let's say they've gotten out of college.
Mhm.
And for instance, let's say they've maybe done a couple of years of community college in biology, and they're
Yeah.
wondering, do I really want to go on to a 4-year college? Maybe there's something where I could go work in a lab.
Mhm.
What is it that they want to see that their employer is going to offer them versus
Yeah.
something else? I think that is the key of understanding the carrot that we need to dangle.
Definitely. No, it's a good question. I think one of the most important things that when I talk about a candidate-driven market and what I think it means, I think it's that candidates and I guess people just have a lot more choice and a lot more say when it comes into what it is that they want out of a job, out of a company. I think many years ago it's maybe a lot different where the companies had more of a say, a bit more power in that. Now it's all about what we want, especially someone who is experienced in a niche sector like wastewater. We have I guess these candidates have a lot more say when it comes to what it is that they want. I think just throwing good salaries at people, it just doesn't really cut it anymore. You need to offer a lot more. Whilst I think definitely in a post-COVID world as well, throwing just throwing money at people doesn't work. People want a
No.
bit more than that. Flexibility is obviously something which is really really a big thing since then. Obviously, a lot of people want to maybe work from home or versus in the office. In every job, obviously,
Right. At a
that's not
wastewater
always
treatment
possible.
plant, no, you can't work from home.
Exactly. That's not always possible, but it's not just things like flexibility. It's things like, the values and the culture in a company. Progression opportunities, I think, is something really big. I guess the overall benefits package is really important. One of the things that I think can be really important in attracting young talent is a clear, I guess, a clear progression path in a company. What does it look like in 1 year? What does it look like in 3 to 5 years? Maybe actually not just saying that it's going to be this or this, but actually implementing it in like a sort of fast track management scheme where someone can maybe in 12 months time, if they do this work, in 12 months time they can be a supervisor, a manager, if they do well. I think offering that progression is really important, and then offering a really really solid benefits package as well is quite important. Something that is, a little bit different than just a standard one. I think in public sector, I think benefits package can be a lot more lucrative than in the private, but then there's also more I guess alternative advantages to the private sector as well. But I think for me, offering a bit more than just what's normal, offering a bit more than just a little bit of money than the competitor. What does the company actually offer in terms of culture, in terms of value, in terms of progression? I think of those are some of the main things from my side.
Well, when a firm like yours is, brought on board to find candidates, I just have to, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. What are some of the biggest challenges that you face, not just in finding the candidate, but getting them to accept an offer? What have you been struggling with the most? And what gets it over the threshold? What gets it over the threshold beyond the money?
Yeah. This is why the candidate-driven market is so, I guess, for a recruiter like myself, why it's such a big deal. Because for me to get someone over the line, for me to get someone to accept a job offer, I have to make sure that they're fully invested and fully interested in this opportunity. And many years ago, it might have been somewhat easier because people were a lot more, I guess, inclined to accept what would come around. But now people have a lot more choice, and so my difficulty a lot of the time is getting this candidate interested enough in this company. And I'm not just gonna say whatever to get that done. I want to make sure that the company actually, I guess, practice what they preach as well. I want to make sure that the candidate is joining a solid company. So that's why I choose to work with you know companies that I believe in, companies that I believe are doing the right things, because ultimately I've worked with some companies in the past who have let me down because they, will lose a candidate because they can't meet certain expectations. They can't keep up with the market and keep up with the competition. So it's important for me to work with companies that I think are doing the right things, so that when I'm trying to get a candidate over the line and to accept a job, I guess it's easier for me because I know that, let's say they're interviewing at two other places. I'm pretty confident that the company I'm working with will be their preference, especially someone who has the exact experience that we're looking for compared to, let's say they're going to a different industry. So that's really why the candidate driven market is such a big deal, why it's quite important, why it's quite tough as well. So yeah, that'd probably be the main thing.
Well, when we think about that candidate driven market, some of the things, you mentioned benefits, upward mobility, that, trajectory. Does technology play a part in it? This has been kind of a discussion I've been having with a number of people across different sectors, that they are starting to feel that the new blood, unless they, come into a company, they take a tour of a plant, or they take a tour of a facility, that they're going to be more attracted to those organizations that are open to exploring, implementing, being on the cutting edge of technology. And what has been your take on that? Does that weigh in a bit when somebody's making a decision that I want to be with a forward-thinking organization? And I think it's probably more in the public sector that it's important, because often in wastewater, they're very slow adopters. They're kind of a little bit skittish on new technology. But I think in many ways, just wanted to get your take on it. I think in many ways, those organizations that are open to new technology and always looking for better ways of doing things and embracing it are the ones that are going to attract these younger people into the industry. No one wants to, at least I see with the young people, that, all of them have grown up. If you think of a 20 something, there's never been a time in their life, and the time that they could probably hold it, that they've been without a smartphone or even the internet. And so I think they want to see that the company is keeping up, or the organization that they're going to join is keeping up with the times. It isn't still doing stuff on an Excel spreadsheet with a yellow pad and a pencil.
Yeah.
So what's your take on that?
This is really interesting, actually, because I think, as you say, young people are definitely a lot more I guess, used to, using technology all the time, will probably want to be in an area, will probably want to be in a company that, leverages technology. I think it's really interesting because I do see a lot more companies in this sector slowly shifting towards, things like AI, data analytics, digital transformation. I'm seeing a lot of companies doing that. And so with that, they need people who are experiencing this stuff, who understand this stuff. And I think that's where young people really come in, and that's where it'd be useful to have people experiencing that. But I think sometimes maybe where, our sector can drop the ball a little bit is really attracting those people who are, I guess, who are experienced in these sort of areas, because I'll see it a lot of the time when I've been maybe working on, digital positions. A lot of these candidates won't think to come to, the wastewater sector. They'll go to companies like, your Microsoft and things. So it is quite important to make sure we're attracting those people. But definitely, I think if we do the right things in getting them interested in the sector, I think getting those people who are interested in technology, are interested in AI, and however, to get them over to the wastewater sector would be amazing, really. So it's all about really doing the right things to bring them over and attract them to the sector.
Right. We have to have something that's going to attract them. Like you were just
Mm.
saying that they'll go to Microsoft because maybe that's what it is there's that assumption that wastewater is behind the times. And we really aren't, because it is, in some ways we are, and in some ways we aren't, but it's a highly technical job, as wastewater operators. This is not a job for a dumb bunny. People have that, the young people think, oh God, I'm going to be, knee deep in hip waders shoveling sludge. And no, that isn't what wastewater treatment or water treatment operator, or even doing things out in the field, collection systems operators, nothing could be further from the truth. And I think, like you were saying, is that we need to be able to offer them the same type of, like, what I would say, coolness, as they say in the UK.
Mhm.
Oh, what is that expression? Oh, it's got a good bit of kit. We need to be able to offer them that excitement
Yeah.
of being able to learn and play. I would say play
Mhm.
with new technology, because that's what they've been doing since they were babies. And so without that, I think they may come in, but we may lose them unless we keep them engaged with something new all the time that they can learn and they can sink their teeth into. Would you agree with that?
That's why I think a lot, whilst it's good to see a lot of these companies, slowly shifting towards these sort of areas, these sort of technologies, we need to see even more, really, because, catching up with other industries, other sectors. I think especially, wastewater sectors are probably some of the most important in the world, I think, in terms of, using digital technology. It really helps when, the engineers and operators can focus less on the sort of the hands-on work, which can be used by digital technology, and get doing other things, really. I think it's such an important sector to really use these technologies, but maybe not enough companies are actually doing it and actually implementing it. So absolutely, I think if more companies get with the times, per se, then I think it'll be
Right.
a lot easier to attract that young talent. Absolutely, that's probably one of the key reasons, and one of the key things that I know I'm looking at in the sector. The companies who are, you know implementing these technologies are finding talent a lot easier than the others. So without a doubt, it's one of the most important things right now.
So for wastewater, like I said earlier on, I've never thought of a headhunting firm for, municipal wastewater operators, or even for private sector looking for this.
Mhm.
What are some of the benefits for organizations if they are struggling with recruitment? What are some of the benefits, and I would guess say guarantees, advantages of not trying to do it yourself, but using an an outsource firm such as yourself to help them with this process?
Yeah, it's funny because, whilst I tell a lot of people, what it is I do, and people thought I didn't know I didn't realize there was a recruiter for this sector. It's
Right.
not a thing which people hear of, but you'd be surprised that there are a lot of people who do this, and a lot of people in other sort of niche areas as well. It's all about finding a sector which is maybe lacking talent acquisition and things like that, and helping out. So I think why I think what it is I do is important. For me, I think one of the things I try to do a lot is help out and partner with definitely smaller to medium-sized companies who are growing, because these are the companies who are maybe lacking strong, in-house talent acquisition teams, strong recruiters internally. The big, large players in the sector will always have their own
Mm,
in-house talent teams, and while
right.
from time to time they'll struggle as well and require a recruiter from time to time, an external recruiter from time to time, it's definitely more likely that we'll partner with those smaller, medium-sized companies who don't have all the resources to do it themselves. And so that's why, when we come in, it's beneficial, because basically we can free up the workload and take it all off your hands, and let you focus on really the more important things, let you focus on the actual, water, wastewater industry, the sector, let you focus on the big issues that you're facing every day. Let us take care of the things that you don't want to do, and we'll
Right.
get it we'll get it done, really. So that's where I think recruiters like myself are very important, and especially those who actually work in a very niche sector like this one, because it means that we understand, or I understand what it is that you're talking
Right.
about, what your requirements are, what the skills that you need are. Because if you just get a recruiter who is a generalist, maybe a recruiter who specializes in sales, or is just a local
Right.
recruiter who doesn't actually understand your business and understand your products or services or whatever, then how are they going to know what it is that you need? So I think really partnering with someone, whether it be myself or someone else, partnering with someone who understands your business, understands your products and services, is the most important thing, really, to really help get the best talent, without a doubt.
Right. I mean, it's not going to remove the burden of you having to do the interviews and really meeting these people, but that difficult part of the screening, and maybe even, you're disqualifying those who are just not going to be a good fit, or, taking that
Mhm.
burden off that the person will actually disqualify themselves once they learn what's, really involved, can be a huge time saver, especially for, like you were saying, those small to medium sized organizations, especially those that are involved in or they're in a growth phase right now, because sometimes the pool can be very, very challenging, for finding talent, because not everybody wants to, let's admit it, not everybody wants to do this type of work. But one thing that they do have to understand, and I tell folks this: encourage people in your life to think about this as a career, especially young people, because it is a recession proof industry. Because as long as there's people on the planet, we're going to need clean water to drink, and we're going to need a way to take care of our natural byproduct. And it's never going to go away. And we're responsible in this industry for the health and well being of civilization. And so it is a vital, vital job. And I think some folks don't even realize that with college, not everybody is meant to go to college, or wants to go to college, but yet they may be bright, but they're not the academia personality. They're more using their smarts for doing something with their hands or something physical. And this is an amazing, industry to come into, because there's so many different careers. It's not just operations. There's reporting, there's analysis, there's labs, there's maintenance. I mean, it's just, the list goes on and on and on. And so for those of you listening who may be struggling, maybe, consider taking some of these, pieces of advice that we shared today about, making sure that you're offering the right package. And if you're still having a hard time, maybe working with a recruiter such as James just a shot, just to see if it may be, the solution for your business. And so for those who are considering it or would really like just to connect with you and talk, James, how can they learn more about what your company does and connecting with you?
So I'd say best place really is on LinkedIn. I think that's where, to be honest, I spend at least 80%, 90% of my time on a on a day-to-day basis. So definitely say on LinkedIn, reach out to me there. Otherwise, you can reach me by email. That's jm@pivot-search.com. But I'd say LinkedIn is probably the best place to reach me, definitely.
And is there information on the company website to explore how your process works as well?
Yeah, so you can go on the Pivot website to see a little bit more about that, or as well, if you go on my LinkedIn profile, you can find a copy of my brochure, which sort of talks to you a little bit more about the sort of companies I've worked with, a bit more about my experience in the sector, which I think is a really good resource to use, definitely.
All right. Well, again, James, thank you for coming on the show and just giving us your insight on the hiring market, because it is something that we all need to be paying a lot of attention to. I think we're a little bit behind the curve here when you were saying earlier about, within the next 10 years, a large percentage is going to be retiring. And so we don't have the luxury of waiting, because a lot of that knowledge transfer that some of these experienced people have, they're not going to be able to transition that to someone in a month or 2 months. I love the idea of the apprentice program, of even if we don't technically call it an apprentice program, to just adopt that attitude or that kind of my mindset that the younger people coming in to work with an older seasoned person to bring them up through the ranks, and to not have to rush it through training, but allow them to take the time that 4 to 5 years here in the United States to become like what they would call a journeyman plumber. They do still adopt that apprentice attitude or that apprentice model for, plumbers, electricians, where you have to work with a journeyman plumber as an apprentice for 5 years before you can even qualify to be listed as a master plumber or a journeyman plumber. And so maybe we should take a play for that. I like that idea of adopting what they're doing, overseas in the United States for wastewater operators, even in some soft way. I think it could really, really help the industry, and just giving young people an opportunity to learn, get them young on a summer internship program to see what it's all about, that, hey, this is kind of interesting. And also getting more women involved. I interviewed someone that she says this is a great career for women, because around the world, women are often the ones that are tasked with gathering and providing the water. So it's almost kind of a natural progression that why shouldn't we get women involved in this? That it's not truly a man's world anymore in this, equal opportunity employment in the sector. And so again, thank you for coming on the show. And for those of you tuning in, hope you got something out of this, got some food for thought. And until next time, keep it flowing. Thanks so much for joining me, the Do-Do Diva, on this week's episode of Smells Like Money. What stood out to you this week? Share your takeaways by leaving me a review. You can find out more about the new technologies, creating sustainable solutions, and insights on how to succeed in our vital industry by subscribing to the show. Whether you want to learn about the latest trends in wastewater infrastructure, treatment, or trenchless, you've got it all right here at Smells Like Money. If you're an industry expert and would like to be considered as a guest for the show, book a quick chat with me by visiting calendly.com/the2it group/B-A-podcast-guest, or simply click the link in the show notes below. Until next week, a big shout out to all my industry friends and those who will be. You are my superheroes. Thanks for tuning in, keeping it flowing, and we'll see you all next week.